أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Which means, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. I bear witness that there is nothing worthy of worship except Allah and Allah alone. And I bear witness that the Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah, may the peace and blessings of Allah forever be upon him, is his last divinely sent messenger and the seal of the prophethood. Ameen. We want to welcome our friends and guests in South Africa, the United States, and around the world to this week's edition of A Conversation with El-Hajj Maurice Salakan. I am pleased to be your host, coming to you once again through the Salam Media platform out of Johannesburg, South Africa. Salam Media is an online portal for humanitarian journalism. We don't just report the news, we advise you on what you can do about it. Today's topic for discussion is COVID-19 and the vaccine controversy. Inshallah, Allah willing, we will delve deeply into the ongoing coronavirus controversy, particularly as it pertains to the recent vaccine rollout. That's been getting a lot of attention, not just nationally, but internationally as well. Our special guests for this sensitive conversation are two Muslim brothers I happen to know well, each with different degrees of expertise in the healthcare field, both from an American tribe most heavily impacted by this dreaded disease. Dr. Omar Abdul-Malik has been in the healthcare field for 30 years. He currently works as a hospitalist physician's assistant in Washington, D.C. He earned undergraduate degrees from the University of the District of Columbia and Howard University, a graduate degree with a specialization in infectious diseases from the University of Nebraska Medical Center, and he has a doctorate in health education from A.T. Still University School of Health Management. His interests are in behavioral health beliefs in the Black urban community and how those beliefs affect behavior and health outcomes. Our brother Baron Jamaal Musa, no stranger to this platform. He's been our guest at least 3 times in the past. Is employed with the DC Department of Health in infectious diseases associated with a housing program. But I believe he also has some area of work in the area of epidemiology. He can clarify this, inshallah ta'ala, during our conversation. I would also add that he's a very conscious brother who happens to chair the board of directors of the Aafia Foundation. With that, I want to bring our guests on and begin the conversation, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, my brothers.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Dr. Omar
Yes.
Abdul-Malik, let us begin with you, my brother. Wa alaikum salam. Let us begin with you. The first question I have is how does a virus differ from other organisms? Let's start there.
All right. So it's a very good question. So I'm glad you asked that. So a virus is not a living organism as we understand it. So this is, I have a model. I don't know if you can see that here. This is a model of a virus. So what it has in it is it's composed of these spike proteins that are on the cell wall of the virus. And this is going to be very important in our conversation, especially pertaining to the vaccine, and actually what is the virus and how they're transferred from one person to another. So inside the virus is a nucleus. Inside that nucleus is something called it's DNA material. So in this case, in the case of the COVID-19 virus, it's an RNA, so ribonucleic acid, and it's dependent upon what we call a host cell for replication. So this is an example of a host cell. So these cells, this is an animal cell inside of it. It has DNA, so deoxyribonucleic acid, and the virus has got to get its genetic material inside the genetic material of the host cell, i.e. us or other animals, unlike a bacteria. So bacteria is able to live by itself. I don't have my model of my bacteria up here, but bacteria's, these are ubiquitous. They're all over the place, as are viruses. But the difference between a virus and a bacteria is that bacteria are able to live by themselves, and they've got their own DNA, so they're deoxyribonucleic acid, so they don't need host cells to replicate.
Okay.
So think of, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but think of things like so I one of the things I do as a hospitalist, I take care of a lot of people with respiratory failure. So they've got things like different types of pneumonia. So Klebsiella pneumonia, E. coli pneumonia. You've heard of E. coli. It's in our gut. It's this bacteria that we eat with things like yogurt, so acidophilus. That's a type of bacteria. There's good bacteria and bad bacteria. And we have kind of a symbiotic relationship with those things. We don't have that with viruses, really. Viruses, they just replicate in us, and they make us very sick in some cases.
And what is a vaccine?
So the vaccine it's used to inoculate us with either a piece of the virus or something that's similar to the virus, and your body will recognize that for future references and build up something. This is a model of a white blood cell. It's a special type of cell that fights invaders inside the body, whether that's a bacteria or a virus. So what the body does, will invade us. Your immune system will see that invading thing and say, what is this? We got to build up something to fight it. So we've got something called immunoglobulins. And what the vaccine does is it introduces this foreign substance into your body, and your body says, okay, we got to build up something to fight that. And it builds up a defense mechanism. So next time you're presented with it, your body already has those mechanisms to fight it. So the immunoglobulins.
Now, you've taken an interest in behavioral health beliefs. That's an interesting term. What are behavioral health beliefs, and how do they factor into the impact that this pandemic is having in the Black community, especially the urban community?
Yeah. So behavioral health beliefs. There's many different theories about why we do the things to ourselves and amongst each other that we do. So one behavioral health theory, there's the trans-theoretical model of change. This is not mine. This was produced by another group of scientists. And you've got different stages of these behavioral health beliefs. So say smoking cigarettes, for instance. If you don't believe that smoking is a problem, you're not even somebody who we can engage in a conversation about smoking cessation. And I dealt with a lot of patients that deal with nicotine addiction. So if you don't even think that smoking is a problem, you're at what we call a pre-contemplation stage, we can't even talk to you about it.
Yeah.
Then if you're in the contemplation stage, you say, listen, I know I need to quit, but I just can't quit. You know, my wife stresses me out, so I got to go take a smoke. So that's the contemplation stage where you've understood that, you know, it's a problem. Then the initiation phase is where you say, okay, let me start really addressing this issue of smoking, because I know it's going to cause lung cancer, COPD, you know, all sorts of other things that are going to be wrong with me. So you sit with your clinician or somebody else or yourself. You say, okay, every week I'm going to smoke a little bit less cigarettes than I did the previous week. So you're in the initiation phase. Then you've got the maintenance phase where you can keep doing this for a long period of time. Then you've got a phase, the last phase, where even stressors in life doesn't drive you back to smoking. And this is, you know, when we're looking at things like, you know, people falling back into bad habits. So what that deals with the vaccine, you've got folks who don't even believe that this COVID-19 exists. I've spoken to them, like, where is it? What does it look like? You know, and I try to tell them that a single viron is infinitesimal. We need a special microscope to even see it. It's called an electron microscope. And even then, they're among some of the smallest types of viruses. So if you tell a person, well, this thing actually exists, like, where's your proof? That's somebody who you can't really have an intelligent conversation about the COVID-19 and even the vaccine. For people who are contemplating, you know, there's something going on here. We don't know what it is. I don't know, but, you know, my friends and relatives are coming down with this mysterious respiratory illness. They're going to the hospital. You know, I'm nervous about this. That's somebody who's kind of contemplating, like, okay, maybe these virus things do exist. Somebody who is in the initiation stage, these are people who are going to wear their mask, do the social distancing, washing their hands, and understand okay, we got to try to fight this thing. And the people who are actually in the phase, like we're discussing now, how do we attack this? How do we keep ourselves and our loved ones from getting it? You know, that's part of that whole health belief model. Yeah, that's a bit verbose, but it's a multifaceted dynamic, and, you know, there's reasons why we're not able to our community is dying from this.
Indeed. I was going to raise a question with our brother Jamaal, but he has stepped away. Inshallah ta'ala. Let me follow this up.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to come back to you, Dr. AbdulMalik, with a question on your opinion of the vaccine a little later. Right now, I want to segue to our brother Jamaal and ask him to first explain what his role is in the DC Department of Health.
Yes, thank you, Brother Salih Khan. Assalamu alaikum to all our viewers. First of all, I apologize for my lighting. I'm on the road here in the hotel fooling around trying to get the lighting correct. I just can't quite seem to get it. But so I currently work for the DC Department of Health. DC is still a majority black city. It used to be called Chocolate City, not so much now. it's you know, gentrification is real. But
Right.
So, and this is what I wanted to bring to the program. I am an expert in affordable housing programs, and this is how I got into the health department. And I majored in college, not in health sciences, but I majored in urban studies. And the reason why I majored in urban studies, because I had what the Quran calls dul qarbi, love of near relatives. I love my people. I love my tribe. I saw that black people were an urban people, so I needed to know the dynamic. How do we get to these urban areas? Where do we come from? And there's a ayah in the Quran that, a story in the Quran that we all know about Adam that influenced me very much. And I won't read it in Arabic or read it line for line, but I'll summarize it, and all Muslims know this in Surah Baqarah. Allah told the angels, the Malaika, that he's going to create a Khalifa in the earth. The first thing that the angels did in response was say, why would you create in the earth one who would shed blood when we extol your holiness? And Allah said, but I know what you know not. And when we further read that story, Allah teaches Adam the names. And from a Christian background, we usually think that means that's a cat, that's a dog, that's a rat, or whatever. But in Arabic, Isma means the attributes of things, not just what they're to be called in language, but the science, the knowledge of these things. And then Allah brings the angels, and he says to the angels, you speak to the attributes. And they say, well, we don't know, Allah. And then Allah has Adam. Now pay attention to this, Muslims. Allah has Adam then demonstrate to the angels his superior knowledge of the names. And after doing so, this is the only time that we can see something figurative like this in the history of Quran, in any story. Allah commands the Malaika to make sajda to Adam. So where am I going with that? I wanted to have knowledge of what my people's experiences was all about. We can pray, we can extol the holiness of Allah, but if someone else has more knowledge than us, we're going to be in a form of sajda to those who have more knowledge, no matter how devoted we are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the story in the Quran. And so I went into urban studies. I got into the field, which brought me into the health program through a housing program for persons with infectious diseases. And so what I would want to finish answering that question, Salah Khan, although I do housing, because I'm in the health department, all of us are on call. All of us had to have COVID training. All of us had to learn about contact tracing. At any moment, I could be called, and I must be at a desk making phone calls, talking to human beings who've actually been touched by this disease. And this is not a myth, beloved people in our community. We have many, and this is not the days of Tuskegee, where you have white men in white labs in the coats and black people who can't read, speaking broken English and just going blind. You see here, we have Brother Omar AbdulMalik with the model teaching us, explain to us, why do we need to be suspicious of the brother? Does he look like the Illuminati to any of our guests? So we have our own people who are from top to bottom in all aspects of this field. Let me just say a few, Salah Khan. Washington, D.C., where I work, our leader in the health department is Dr. LaQuandra Nesbitt, a black woman. Houston Health Department, Stephen Williams, a black man. Fulton County Board of Health in the city of Atlanta, Lynn Paxton, a black woman. Chicago Board of Health, Carolyn Lopez, the director, a Hispanic woman. The New York City Department of Health, Dave Chosky, an Indian. In Los Angeles County, Muntu Davis, a black man. These are the people who are responsible for presiding over this coronavirus health crisis. These are black and brown individuals in these major cities where it's having an impact on us. That's a disparity. On us, I mean black people.
You know something, brother? I'm glad that you you included those references in your response, because another question that I had for you, and you've already weighed into it. You've already basically responded to it. If you wanted to expound a little further, you could. But I did have a question. Are there a large number of black, or a significant number of black and brown people involved with the DC Department of Health and other health departments around the nation? That was a question. You've already weighed into it. And let me also note, I don't know if you all caught the discussion. I don't know if it was a live broadcast or if it was a rebroadcast that was aired this morning over C-SPAN. it was a discussion on this epidemic, this remedy, this potential remedy that's being unveiled as we speak throughout the country, and the suspicion that there has been within the African American community, and the reasons for it. I mean, the legitimate reasons for that suspicion. But one of the things that really stood out for me was that in that conversation, there were a number of African American voices that were very, very impressive. I'm talking about doctors and scientists, you know, who were a part of that conversation, who should have, you know, if not put to rest, at least significantly calmed the reservations that some of our influence peddlers within the Black and brown communities have on the wrong side of this issue. But with that said, you know, if you wanted to expound a little further on this question of the presence of African American professionals in this field, and after you respond, Brother Jamaal, if our brother Omar, Dr. Omar AbdulMalik, wants to weigh in as well, he can do so. But please go ahead.
Yes. So, and you said, like you said, I already responded to it. But from top to bottom, we have Black people, Brother Saleh Khan and his brother Abdul-Malik knows, involved with infectious diseases. I mentioned in DC, the chief epidemiologist is a person that I know personally. He's not an Illuminati. He's not a part of the Rothschilds. He has no allegiance to Bill Gates and Anthony Fauci. He's a Black brother from Baltimore City who loves his people and wants to feed his 2 daughters and wants a better life for them. The people in the field are not out to, they're not trying to kill all Black people. And this is another very unfortunate thing. And I'm really speaking to the Muslims here, everyone, but really to the Muslims. What we say and what we do with this tongue and our hands and the feet and our feet, we're going to be held accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's our belief. Slander is not a thing that's pleasing to Allah. We have too many people in our community. It's almost as if our hatred for the white man and for America has gotten us off the Sirat al-Mustaqim. We put more emphasis in what they do to us than our own act of ibadah to Allah. Why did I say that? Because here is what some of the pundits will say in our community, even Muslims, which is very disappointing to me. If you show them Brother Omar Abdul-Malik, you show them me, you show them the Surgeon General who is Black, Miss Corbett, who's a Black woman who works under Fauci, trying to save people's lives. She even spoke out against health disparities. And Tucker Carlson on Fox tried to lash out at her and said, how can the nation's coronavirus pandemic be involved with this Black woman here who's accusing America of historical and systemic racism? These people are not sellouts and toms in the vaccines and all of these different companies. You have Black scientists, biologists that are working in these fields because of the love that they have for their people. The experiment, they know about Henrietta Lacks experiments in Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, and they wanted to do something for their people from a standpoint of knowledge, not slander and conspiracy without knowledge. So we have to worship Allah as Muslims, come up with evidence, and stop slandering people for what has been done in the past. We have to look at everything through a microscope for the haqq. So yes, there are Black people in the departments, in the industries, the healthcare profession, the doctors. This vaccine, you don't get the vaccine from the vaccine company. Doctors, physicians, they are the ones who are going to administer the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
No, now it's risky because it's a vaccine. It maybe brother can talk about some of the risk, and that's just the reality. We're not trying to blow this out of proportion here. But there are people who are black in all aspects of this thing who are not a part of some conspiracy to kill out black people, and that's what must be known.
Mm-hmm. Dr. AbdulMalik, would you
Yes.
like to weigh in on that as well?
Absolutely. So I've been, like you said, I've been in the healthcare field for 30 years, which is a long time. I'm a little bit older than I look, alhamdulillah. But having said that, I can go back to the days of the HIV epidemic. I remember when the first people were getting it. Remember, it was those crazy white gay guys. And in fact, part of my doctoral dissertation was doing the timeline history of HIV. And I talk about HIV in conjunction to the COVID-19 pandemic because the behavioral modification that needs to go on is similar. It's behavior. So it used to be called, HIV used to be called GRID, so gay-related infectious disease. When those white guys were getting, people were like, oh yeah, well, we're not one of those. And then even the religious folks got in on it. That's right, those sodomites, they're being punished and whatever. Then black folks started getting it, you know. Then the money started drying up, and I told, and I went through the same thing, you know. So I've been a physician assistant for about 20 years, and I started working at Howard University, and my first patients were black folks, and some were adamant that it did not exist. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what they're talking about. They showed me some tests and said I had this HIV or AIDS or whatever. I don't have it. So look, I'm showing you your test results. Okay, listen, draw your blood again. Okay, look, here it is. Here's your viral load. Your T cell count is very low. You got the stuff on the back, and you know these cotton patches, which is fungus esophageal candidiasis. You got wasting. You're 5'10", 110 pounds. You got Kaposi sarcoma, which is it's an invasive lesion that goes all over the skin. You got to take medication. You have AIDS. No, I don't. Those people died. You know, they died. So it's like it said, it's here. And you know, I would be accused, just like the brother was saying, like, well, you're one of them. You're probably in cahoots with big pharma, with big pharmacy. I said, listen, there's far more. I know people in my profession making, you know, over $250,000, which is not a lot by today's standards, but they're doing very, very well. They don't live in the neighborhood that I live in. They don't work at the hospitals that I work at. You know, I work in Anacostia. I work at a hospital there because it's always been important to me to use my mind and knowledge to help our tribe. You know, black folks in the inner city, because a lot of us started out as Muslims when we were brought here in shackles, you know, generations back, and we've just had a lot of things done to us. So we're suspicious for good reason. But as the brother was saying, give those of us who have stuck around some credit. We could have left. We got ours. I got a bunch of degrees behind my name. I could have left. Lived in a nice house way out in the suburbs. You'd never see me doing plastic surgery medicine or something like that. But I'm dedicated to helping us because we're the ones that are suffering the most from these things. And a lot of times it's due to our own ignorance. And I get so angry. I'm sorry, I'm very passionate about this. Just tell me to calm down a little bit if I need to. I'm seeing stuff on social media from a lot of black leaders that you don't know what's in that. You know what they're gonna do? They're gonna give it to the white folks. You know, they're gonna give the white folks like sterile water or something, and then give the veil vaccine to the black folks to see, you know, how it works. And if we don't die off, then they'll take it. I personally know white people that are taking the vaccine. Now, I was in charge, there's a secret about myself. I was in charge of a vaccine program at an inner city clinic. I went to go pick the vaccines up. You know, it was a flu vaccine, a pneumococcal vaccine. And you guys remember the so-called swine flu, the H1N1. So we've been through this before. And that was my duty to do we'd have to do a screening process. So, brother, what you were talking about, a lot of the side effects, we would do a very rigorous screening process for people before we gave them the vaccine, and then inform them of the possible side effects. It can cause a cutaneous reaction. You may have some itching, you may have some swelling, some pain. Do you have an allergy to latex or eggs? And educate people about the different types of vaccine before we gave it to them. And people are always able to opt out. So it's not like you could hold the person down and force a vaccine on them. But the same folks that are these people talking about the Illuminati, and whoever Bill Gates is related to Margaret Singer, and she was a eugenicist, and it comes from alien DNA, and it was from China. It's these same people. I don't hear them being as vocal about things that really affect our community, that make us start at a lower base level in terms of our health, just in terms of our health. So, go after the tobacco industry. You go to the inner city, there's a place where you can get cigarettes every block. You go to the inner city, there's a liquor store every 5 blocks. And then they got this K2 spice that they sell. Then you can go, brothers are shooting each other in the street. Talk about the things that we can do something about.
Yeah.
Who's in the Illuminati? Who's related to whom? That's far outside of my scope of influence, and it's nothing that I can prove. And just like the brother was saying, we have to be careful of people that spread a lot of gossip, in backbiting, because it's not helpful. It's not helpful to our community.
That's right.
I mean, I've had friends and family members with COVID-19. I've taken care of people with COVID-19. It's real. I think the vaccines are going to do a lot of good in terms of preventing the spread of it. Studies have shown that as many, I think it was 40% of people can be asymptomatic carriers or low symptomatic. So maybe you've got the sniffles, and you're still what we call afebrile. So your temperature is like 98.6, which is supposedly average. But you're walking around with COVID, and then you give it to somebody. Somebody whose immune system can't handle it, and that person crashes. Remember the young people they had at the I think the spring break, and one was like, "Hey, if I get COVID, I get COVID. At the end of the day, I'm not going to let it stop me from partying." Well, these are very young people, so they can get it, but then they take it back to their aging parents or grandparents, and because of your immune system just decreases as you get older, and then you've got type 2 diabetes, hypertension, hypercholesteremia, other things that tend to be age related. COVID really is going to take its toll. So I'm very excited about the prospect of the vaccines. I know there's another medication that was being touted, Ivermectin. Maybe we can talk a bit about that. But right now there's 3 different companies that 2 are offering the vaccines, and one, AstraZeneca, looks like they're about to come out with theirs, which is going to be, I think, available for distribution soon. But I think we're going to see a lot of things from it.
Yeah, Brother Jamaal, Dr. Abdul-Malik weighed in on behavioral health beliefs in a very effective way. But getting back to that topic with a response from you, why is the coronavirus fatality rate higher among Black and Latino from your perspective, and how does the CDC come up with the numbers of infections and deaths?
Okay, yeah, very good question, because that's a part of the conspiracy theories also. So in terms of the impact of coronavirus on the Black community, one, as you said, Brother Abdul-Malik spoke to that, we have a lot of these comorbidities, these underlying diseases like hypertension, diabetes, and things like that, which also, and they say up front, and I hear this also, if you really look at the reports that people are not dying from coronavirus, they're dying from something else, as if that's some big conspiracy. But those in the field, those with knowledge, that's what is already known. You might die of another condition, but you would not have died of that condition had you not gotten the virus. The virus itself is exacerbating things within your system, and your system shuts down. So that's one, comorbidities. But also it is, and here's an issue of equity and race, the jobs that our people are in. And I'll read you something from a paper that Dr. Nesbitt of the health department wrote just on this. And again, she's a director, she's Black, and she's acknowledging disparities. And this is what she writes in a paper that was recently published. Quote, communities across the U.S., racial and ethnic minorities were overrepresented in the critical infrastructure workforce, such as food retail, grocery, public transportation, and allied health professions, and unlicensed and uncredentialed healthcare workers. The disproportionate representation of racial and ethnic minorities in these employment categories largely a function of access to educational opportunities, increase their risk of exposure to SARS-CoV-2, thus leading to higher COVID-19 incidents and disparities, unquote. And so our people, basically what's that saying, we can't take a day off from work.
Right.
in a nutshell, where as myself as a non-critical or essential healthcare worker for the past 7 months, most of the people in DC government have been working from the comfort of our own homes. We only have to go in if we're called to do COVID detail. And there's many of us who are able to make phone calls to check on people from the comfort of our own homes. So again, to the listeners, Shaitan, I don't believe, and I hope you guys don't believe, is not going to create a disease to shut down the bars and the clubs. Okay?
Very good point. Very good point,
the
brother.
casinos and the buffets. Why would Shaitan want to do that?
Yeah.
You know, and some of these conspiracy theories, if we work them out, we would think, well, wait a minute, what sense did that make to myself if we played it back and tried to unconspiracy our conspiracy? Okay. Now, here's another aspect to that second part of your question, Brother Salih Khan. Where do the numbers come from? Where does the CDC get their numbers come from? So we watch the news every day, most of us, and you hear, oh, Fauci this, and the CDC is saying that, and the CDC is saying this, okay? From the standpoint of the pandemic and how it's addressed, it's local. So when we have press, in DC, there are at least 3 press conferences a week. Not in one of those press conferences are you going to hear CDC, Bill Gates, Dr. Fauci, even President Trump. You know why? Because each state has its own Department of Health. When someone has coronavirus, the medical providers are required to report the case to the local health department. The local health department then aggregates the numbers, and then each state department, getting all the data, they send the data to the CDC. The CDC does not manufacture the data. So if you watch CNN or MSNBC or Fox or Newsmax or something else, and you see all of these rates happening, and you're thinking, oh, where are these dead bodies? Here's one common thing we say. The rate of fatality rate is only 1%, which is too low, but it's not that high. But again, that's known. But here's the thing. It's not about the rate of the disease in and of itself. Coronavirus is a fast infectious spreader. So if you had 200 million people, even if we're talking about 3 or 4% deaths, that's some cities being wiped out in population. That is the issue, the rapid disease rate. But locally, Brother Salakhan, it is all control. I don't want to wear a mask. That's paranoia. No, each local health department makes that decision, and there is no national mask mandate. There is no national mask mandate. We see what President Trump initially was saying, no, I'm not going to wear a mask. So how can the Illuminati or all these other people create a disease and come up with this mask mandate, but they can't control the president?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Brother, if I could chime in, if I were really part of the Illuminati or the head of it, I would want something to wipe people out. People, I've had family members, like I said, my uncle and my aunt had it, and they recovered from it. You don't want, without a vaccine or anything. If you are part of this nefarious underground group controlling the world, and you want to, bring the population down or under control or cull the masses, as it were, you don't want something that's going to keep people alive. So I just, when I stopped looking at a lot of the conspiracy theories, and I do I've got a YouTube channel, and I talked about the vaccines and even HIV, the work I was doing in HIV, and I started deleting the comments in the comments section because it got so ridiculous, where people accusing me of being an Uncle Tom or working for the Illuminati or working for Big Pharma or being one of them. It's like I can't help what somebody believes because they're looking at whatever's on the dark web or whatever. Yeah, I got to deal with real lives, real patients. And if I may also, what this COVID-19 pandemic and even the other epidemics that we've had, whether it was Ebola, SARS, H1N1, HIV, we had avian flu. If you are a very ill person to begin with, and I say this in particular to Black men who are in the inner city over the age of 50. I'm over 50 now. So I went to the doctor's office and my blood pressure had gone up, my cholesterol level had gone up. I gained a lot of weight. I was stressed out at work because I was new on the job. I picked up like 25 pounds. And I was like, wow, I got to get myself together. I was drinking a bunch of soda, trying to stay awake. I'm a potato chipaholic, man. I really like potato chips. All sorts of potatoes. And I don't eat the little bags. I eat like the family size. And that I was doing that
So you got the twin poisons of sugar and salt. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah. As one brother said, what do you want? Hypertension or diabetes? Take your pick. And I was eating like this every day. And so it really affected my health. Yeah. And as proof, I was taking a basket of laundry. We've got my wife and I's laundry room is in our basement. So I was taking a bag of laundry all the way from, and it was dry. So I can't even say, well, it was really heavy because it was wet. From our basement up to our bedroom. And by the time I got there, I was like, whew, oh my God, my back. Oh God, what's wrong with me? And it was just an activity of daily living. And I was like, wow, I'm really out of shape. So I had to really start changing my lifestyle. Because Brother Salakhan, you've known me for years now, at least 2 decades. And I've always been a skinny guy. But like I said, I picked up weight, and you and I, with our age group, we know brothers like, oh, did you hear about brother so-and-so? He passed. Oh, oh, he had a stroke. This one had a heart attack. Oh, this one's on dialysis. Oh, this one had to have his leg amputated. We're in that age group where we really have to really enact very good lifestyles. And my son and I are both, my middle son and I are both avid distance runners. So we did a 14-mile run this morning down Crescent Trail. And all I saw, we count the number of Black folks we see running or walking or even biking. Like 1,
Yeah.
2, and the rest were just white folks. They just running and walking. They had the hiking sticks out, or they were biking. They got this kind of special machine that it's like an elliptical trainer that's on wheels. I was like, look at these people, man. And you know, we have to. You go to the inner city, everybody's on the street corner. They're smoking a cigarette. And they got their 40-ounce liquor in the other hand, and they're just arguing with each other about nothing. Man, you see the game last night? Man, I lost $50 on that game. Hey, you tell that so he owes about $10. And they're just yelling, and just everybody's just high stressed. And this increases your cortisol, and increases your blood pressure. They call hypertension the silent killer, right? Because it sneaks up on you. So we have to. I tell brothers, like, listen, know your numbers, know your blood pressure, know your cholesterol level, and then there's conspiracy theories about the cholesterol. Know your hemoglobin A1C, so that's your glucose level over an extended period. Know your BMI, your body mass index, and just try to do one thing, even if all you do is, like, I had to start slow to get my self back in shape. I said, all right, today I'm not going to have any potato chips, and today instead of drinking soda, I'm going to drink water. And it took me about 6 months, almost a year actually, almost, to finally get to where everything was a routine. So when you come into the hospital, and I'm sorry, I hate to be verbose on this, but I'm very passionate about this issue, because I have so many Black folks that have got patients, or they've got loved ones who are like our age. They're between 50s and like late 60s. And they think that they're okay. And then they crash. We're doing codes on them with the chest compressions and hook them up to mechanical ventilation. You call the family and they come in. What happened? They were fine before they came to this hospital. I said, what are you calling fine? Well, they were sitting up and talking and everything. I said, all right, your loved one was getting dialysis 3 days a week because he had chronic kidney disease. Your loved one had a partial metatarsal amputation, so part of his foot cut off, because he had diabetic neuropathy. Poorly controlled diabetes for 10 years. Your loved one had COPD because he smoked a pack a day for 30 years. Your loved one was 100-pound overweight. How was he fine? This is how we found him. So it's what we call fine in our community. We have to do better. And this is the behavior belief model. We have to set higher standards for ourselves. And it's not that you're going to prolong your life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Kullu nafsin maut." Every soul shall taste of death. So we can't avoid it. But you're worried more about your quality of life. I tell people this. In our hospital, we've got hospital rooms where you'll have 2 patients in a room. I said, you'll have Joe Black, African American male, then Joe White, European American male. They'll both have chronic kidney disease. They'll both be on mechanical ventilation. They'll both have poorly controlled diabetes. They'll both be the status post CVAs, or cerebral vascular accidents, i.e. strokes, but that the person gets the facial drooping and the contraction of the left hand. But Joe Black is 56, while Joe White is 76. So the things, So I mean, there was a politician who said that when America gets a cold, Black folks get the flu, and everybody got mad at him. But he was right.
I believe you both, and I want to thank you for what you just shared, brother, because we do need to be more focused on quality of life issues. The qadr of Allah is as it pertains to death. Life and death are twin halves of each other. We're born to die. We're going to die. but the quality of life issue is a very important issue that we need to give more attention to. And I really respect and appreciate the way that you just weighed in on that. I believe you both had an opportunity to hear or read the ruling that came from the Fatwa Committee of the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America. What are your thoughts on that ruling?
Brother Malik, Brother Malik, go first.
Okay, all right. So I have to say that I was pleasantly surprised. And forgive me, I'll probably tick a lot of people off, but that's okay. I ask Allah to forgive me. I find that because in Islam we tend toward a theocratic rule because we're trying to please Allah. So we listen to our scholars and try to heed them for guidance, even though that guidance does not always, it comes from, I think, a place of sincerity, but it's not always practical depending on where you're from or where you're existing. So somebody gives a fatwa in Saudi Arabia, that may not help me as a black man in the inner city. But I was pleasantly surprised when I read that fatwa, and it was essentially saying that, listen, we're in a plague-like conditions, and this is not new. So plagues were around since Prophet Muhammad, you know. So this idea of a pandemic or a worldwide or at least a community-wide plague, if you will, it's a modern-day plague. So they were very prudent. They said, listen, Juma, this thing of getting together every Friday where you're in close quarters in an enclosed building and we're breathing each other's air and the viruses as you cough, people are, you're inhaling people's viruses potentially. We have elderly people among us, people with immune compromised disease. We should not be going to Juma. We should not be going to like the Eid prayer. Now, I know there's some masjids that are meeting for Juma, but it's outside, so it's modified. And they're doing a good job of making sure that they're 6 feet apart. So I was pleased with the fatwa, not that they need me to be pleased with them, but I thought that it was very prudent. And I also thought that it flied in the face of people who have accused Islam of being anti-science. The first words to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam were ikra bismi rabbika al-a'la. Read in the name of your Lord. So we're an intellectual people. If you call yourself Muslim, that means that you've dedicated your life to being an intellect. I mean, look, we're 3 black guys from America, but we had to learn Arabic to say our prayers in Arabic. According to Wikipedia, Arabic is the 4th hardest language to learn for English speakers. And here we are. We say our prayers in Arabic. We read Quran in Arabic. So we have to be intellects, and it showed that the shiuch who got together and said, all right, what's the cost benefit analysis of this? How do we still fulfill our obligations to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but modify them because we're in a plague-like setting? So I was like, alhamdulillah, Allah Akbar. I was very happy with it. So that's what I felt.
Yeah, and I try to be short to the point with the fatwa. The fatwa, like the brother was saying, is that sometimes a fatwa is for a particular situation, and it doesn't necessarily hold precedent as we try to use it, because somebody might be in another situation, but it doesn't apply for that. So a fatwa traditionally is applying to this set of facts being brought before. However, the fatwa showed something that, again, we should already know from the stand. It should already have informed the Quran should already inform our view about this. And this is what I'm talking about. Allah does not need our prayers. The prayers and the acts of ibadah are for ourselves. And I hear some Muslims saying, oh, don't worry about it. Don't be afraid. Allah got you. Allah has your back. Allah got you. But Allah has revealed in the Quran itself, paraphrasing in English, during a time of war, a party of you pray. a party of you watch, because your enemy looking at you can't wait for you to throw down your arms and ambush you. The guidance doesn't, Allah doesn't say, oh, if you praying, I got you. Throw down your weapons. Don't worry. Just do what I said. Guidance is for us to live in the ordered. And that fatwa was right along with that. We have to preserve life. And the other thing I thought about in talking about the fatwa, if we go back to early Muslim literature, the hadith and things like that, you wouldn't see these conspiracy theories. Oh, it's the Gog and the Juj and the Majuj doing this. Everything was something from Allah. Alhamdulillah. And then a ruling for a disease would be prudent to that disease, knowing that, or the understanding was that this is something that's Allah's in control of, not some Illuminati, devil hidden person, Fauci Gates, which the Ummah has backslid into now.
Mm-hmm. You know, brothers, this is a very important discussion. It's a very thought-provoking discussion, alhamdulillah, and I'm grateful to Allah to have had two brothers very capable of weighing into it in the manner that you both did. We are, subhanallah, we are at the end of the program. We just have a few minutes left, and I knew it was going to go fast. I have just a few minutes left, but I want the last question that you respond to be on, and I hope you saw the video that I sent the link to you on the video of the recent Senate hearing that took place, that included a doctor who was very, very passionate in his criticisms and in his appeal to the quote-unquote leaders of the land. He was emphasizing the point that there had been studies made, in fact, not just theoretical studies, but there was actually a study that resulted in an outcome that was a very significant outcome to support his and other medical experts in the field, both doctors and scientists, that there were existing, drugs, there were existing protocols that could be effectively used to address this issue, and they were not being given the attention that they needed. He was very passionate. Did you see that video, Dr. Abdul-Malik? And if you did, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, Dr. Corey. Yeah, he was talking about a drug called Ivermectin, which is it's used as an anti-parasitic. And there's this term that we have in medicine. My pharmacology professor used to use it, serendipity. So that's when a drug is created for one thing, but it's shown to have efficacy in something else. So the ivermectin, it actually shows that it increases the membrane pores when it's presented with a parasite, and it does the same thing for a virus, because viruses have cell walls instead of membranes. So he was saying, look, the people who take the ivermectin don't get COVID-19. And he was very passionate. I was very impressed. I mean, almost tearing up, man. His face was turning red. And this guy is a very well-respected doctor within his field. He's a critical care specialist. He worked with a team. I think he said he had over 2,000. They had hundreds of papers written, but they had done this research on over 2,000 people. I personally, I'd like to see ivermectin used in conjunction with the vaccine. And as a caveat, I would say that people need to understand, anytime you put any foreign object in your body, it can have a side effect. Foods have side effects. I can't drink milk like I'd like to. The side effect is bloating for me, so even the foods that we eat have got side effects. So ivermectin is not necessarily going to give you any less side effects than the vaccine. And not everybody's going to get the same side effects, if any. So I really hope that the politicians heed Dr. Corey's words and allow for the distribution of ivermectin as a means of fighting COVID in conjunction with the vaccine, if such is possible. And a lot of the things that he was saying were outside of my scope of understanding, because that's I'm not a hardcore researcher. I'm more of a clinician and an educator. But those are my thoughts on it. I hope that ivermectin will be able to be used in conjunction with the vaccines.
Okay, a final 1 minute thought from you, Brother Jamaal.
Yes, Allah is revealed in the Quran in Surah Hujurat in Ayat 6. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu. If a Fazik comes to you with a report, look carefully into it, lest you harm a people in ignorance, then be sorry for what you have done. Please understand, Muslims, I am not sitting here to tell you to trust anything. I'm telling you to do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said. If somebody who's an evildoer brings news, we have a right to be suspicious of them, then we must investigate. Allah didn't say if a Fazik brings you news, shut him down. Because when it comes to a matter of public safety, the boy who cried wolf, the wolf might be at the door and a lot of people can get killed. So for all you out here that's going on suspicion, I say to you, suspicion is not a substitute for knowledge. Get involved, do your investigations. Instead of being on the internet and YouTube, go to your local health department and demand answers to your suspicions. Talk to people and bring us. The Muslims should be telling people what is the problem, not what's not the problem, not adding to suspicion, but bringing people to the haqq.
Indeed. It's a very good point to end on. While information is power, misinformation can be deadly. Okay. Now, I'm going to conclude with this this appetizer for later this evening. Inshallah ta'ala, at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, that's Washington, D.C., New York City time. Inshallah ta'ala, I'm going to give a presentation on something that just came to my attention a day or two ago that is very, very powerful, and it blends right in with this discussion that we just had. Dr. Farhan Abdulaziz is he gave he had a social media post that came to my attention that is very powerful, where he addresses a number of questions related to the vaccines that are being unveiled as we speak. In his opening remarks before addressing specific questions, he says, with the COVID-19 vaccine being shipped to cities across the country today, I thought it would be a good chance to address some common questions. The information below is based on what is known as of writing this post on December 13th, 2020. References to trials are to the Pfizer vaccine, which has been granted emergency use authorization by the FDA. And then he goes into a series of questions and answers. Inshallah ta'ala, we're going to share that this evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, I want to thank my two guests for today's broadcast, Dr. Omar Abdulaziz and Brother Baron Jamaal Musa for, alhamdulillah, just an excellent presentation, brothers, as I knew it would be. I'm sure that the audience out there, those who are capable of objective listening, have been impacted in a very positive way by what you had to say. And with that, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to conclude as we normally do with Surah Asr. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal Asr. Innal insana lafi khusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amalu salihat. Wa tawasaw bil haqq. Wa tawasaw bis sabr. Which means, in translation, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, by the token of time through the ages. Verily, humanity is in loss, except those who believe and do good and exhort one another to truth and exhort one another to patiently persevere. Peace be unto you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, everyone.